A man presses record on his phone, thinking he's capturing a tense moment only to become the center of one of the most shocking and confusing shootings Minnesota has seen in years. A single decision, a single step toward helping someone else, and within seconds he's on the ground, surrounded by federal agents as a nation scrambles to understand what really happened. And the most unsettling part isn't just the shooting itself, it's what officials said afterward, and how quickly their story started to fall apart. The incident unfolded fast enough to leave witnesses shaken, but slow enough for every frame of footage to trigger a new wave of questions.
Hey everybody, you've probably heard that there was another shooting in Minnesota, and this time a 37-year-old white man was shot by ICE agents, and if you watch the videos that are out there, it appears that he was filming what was happening and then was actually trying to save another person who was there, who ICE agents were pushing around. Sounds like there were multiple shots fired even after he was clearly dead. He was restrained before that by a number of ICE agents. We don't know all the details of exactly what happened, but already DHS started lying about it immediately. Initially, they said he was brandishing a gun. They seem to be defining him as an undocumented immigrant, but the police chief of Minneapolis came out and said that from what they know, and they've identified who the person was, that this guy, his only interactions with law enforcement before were around some parking tickets. And as you may know, Minnesota is an open and concealed carry state, so you can't shoot somebody for having a gun. The video clearly seems to show that he was not brandishing a gun the way that DHS originally said. Now they are, continuing to tell all kinds of lies. And I guess what I just wanted to say is this breaking my heart. It is breaking my heart. We cannot continue to fund ICE and DHS. That's why I voted no, and it's also why I did everything I could to make sure that 97% of Democrats voted no on the DHS funding bill in the House. That's unprecedented. It wasn't enough to stop it, but now it goes to the Senate, where there is really the leverage to stop this funding of DHS and ICE and to demand that Republicans step up and do something about this, because it is unconscionable to me that we are allowing this military federalized force to terrorize people and to kill people. And we don't have a lot of tools of leverage, but funding in Congress is one of them, and particularly in the Senate, where you need 60 votes, which means you need Democratic votes. The other big piece of leverage is the people. And I'm just so grateful to the people of Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minnesota, for coming out. Thousands and thousands of people that came out despite real fear to themselves. So I just want you to know we're going to keep fighting for this. We're going to keep fighting for our country and standing up to resist.
A 37-year-old Minnesota man, someone with no violent history, ended up losing his life during an ICE operation that wasn't even supposed to involve him. Early reports say he was simply recording the chaos when he stepped in to help another person who agents were aggressively handling. But what happened next has left the public stunned. Multiple shots fired, force used even after witnesses say he was already on the ground, and a community demanding answers in real time. The first thing people noticed was how different the on-the-ground scene looked compared to what officials were saying. Rumors spread online that he had approached the officers, but the videos showed something else entirely. In clip after clip, it appears he wasn't lunging, threatening, or even arguing. He was observing and then trying to pull someone away. For many watching, it felt like a tragedy spiraling out of control in a matter of seconds. And yet, even before the city fully processed what had happened, DHS released its first explanation, a statement that ignited even more backlash than clarity. DHS claimed the man was brandishing a gun. It was a bold accusation, the kind that instantly shapes public perception, but within hours cracks appeared in that narrative. The Minneapolis police chief came forward to say that based on what they knew so far, the victim's only past interaction with law enforcement involved parking tickets, not violence, not threats, not weapons charges. And that raised an immediate question: why would DHS describe him as if he were something else entirely? The contradictions kept piling up. Minnesota is an open and concealed carry state. Even if he had a gun on him, that alone wouldn't justify shooting someone, especially not under circumstances where no witnesses reported seeing him threatening anyone. And the videos, they didn't match the initial DHS description either. In fact, the footage circulating online made the claim even harder to believe. This wasn't a man waving a weapon. This was someone holding a phone, crouching down, reaching out toward another person in distress. Rumors suggest DHS may have rushed to publish a narrative that would justify the shooting before any real verification took place. And that forced people to confront a much harder question: why does this keep happening? As more footage emerged from different angles, a clearer picture formed, one that directly conflicted with the official version. In the clip that spread the fastest, he can be seen stepping closer to another individual, possibly to pull them back or shield them from the escalating force. The crowd around the scene looks confused, worried, unsure of why the situation is turning so aggressive so quickly. Witnesses say multiple shots were fired. Some believe more force was used even after he was already down. The way agents moved, the intensity of it all, felt more like a military operation than a civilian arrest. That's where outrage exploded, not just online but in Congress. A member of Congress released a statement almost immediately, and her words carried a weight that matched the public's shock. She spoke not just as a lawmaker but as someone visibly shaken, someone trying to process the emotional and political implications at the same time. She emphasized that this wasn't an isolated mistake. To her, this was part of a pattern, one where ICE and DHS operate with too much power and far too little accountability. She said it plainly. It broke her heart. And more importantly, she said she voted against the DHS funding bill because of situations exactly like this. She fought to get 97% of Democrats to vote no as well. That number alone stopped Washington in its tracks. Nearly the entire party unified around cutting funds to one of the country's most powerful agencies, something almost unheard of in recent years. It wasn't enough to stop the bill, but it sent a message: people are watching and they've had enough. And now the fight moves to the Senate, where things get even more interesting. Unlike the House, the Senate can't pass a funding bill without bipartisan support. They need 60 votes. That means Democratic senators hold leverage, real leverage. They can block funding until demands for accountability are answered. They can force hearings, investigations, and reforms. And with the national spotlight on this shooting, every decision they make will be scrutinized. Rumors around Washington suggest that some lawmakers on both sides are feeling pressure they didn't anticipate. But while Congress debates political leverage, something powerful is happening on the ground. Thousands of people in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and surrounding communities flooded the streets. Not with violence but with urgency, with fear, with determination. They marched even though many felt unsafe, even though tensions were high, even though they worried law enforcement might respond aggressively again, but they came anyway. They showed up because they believed something bigger was at stake. The videos of those protests captured something the official statements couldn't: emotion, pure, unfiltered grief and frustration from a community tired of watching the same story repeat itself. The congressional statement thanked them directly, calling them the second major force for accountability, the one Congress can't ignore. You can dismiss political pressure, you can spin media stories, but you cannot ignore a city that refuses to stay silent. And that leads to the bigger national conversation that this tragedy has reignited. This incident isn't just about one shooting, it's about a federal agency acting in ways that resemble a militarized force more than a community-oriented institution. It's about who gets to decide the truth after a tragedy and who has the power to rewrite it. It's about citizens watching the people meant to protect them instead escalate situations that end with families grieving loved ones they never expected to lose. And it's about the growing number of Americans who feel this system is spiraling out of control. Some say this shooting exposed the deeper issue, an agency operating with little independent oversight. Others believe it reflects a culture where aggressive tactics go unchecked until a video leaks and forces national attention. Reports claim that even former ICE officers have privately raised concerns about training, protocol, and oversight. And whether or not those claims hold weight, the public is demanding answers. But underneath all the political battles, media narratives, and conflicting statements lies one truth: a man is gone, a family is shattered, a community is grieving, and a nation is once again asking why those sworn to protect life keep ending it under circumstances that never seem to add up. So where does this leave us? It leaves us in a moment that could reshape the national conversation if enough people keep paying attention. The Senate now has the power to demand accountability. The public is demanding transparency, and lawmakers are signaling that something needs to change before another tragedy unfolds on camera and the cycle of confusion, outrage, and heartbreak repeats again. This shooting wasn't just another headline, it was a warning. A moment that forced Americans to confront just how fragile the line between authority and abuse of power has become. And in the days ahead, what happens in Congress and in the streets will decide whether this moment sparks real reform or fades into the long list of tragedies that never should have happened. If you want updates as this story unfolds, and if you want more deep dive breakdowns into the moments shaping the national conversation, make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on notifications so you never miss what comes next. The truth isn't always comfortable, but together we're going to keep uncovering it.